reality is that life support technology is three things. It's life support technology, it's standard operating procedure, and
anyone standing on the shore of this metaphorical pond will get wet, and anyone navigating its waters will get tossed.
And I want to take a minute to talk about this from a metaphorical place. Now, metaphor, I actually make meaning of life through metaphor. But you got to be careful. I understand that metaphor can obfuscate when we need to talk straight. Metaphor has no place in clinical conversations, in treatment conversations, in intra-family, end-of-life conversations. It's a cop-out. It's a place to hide. But metaphor can clarify when we need to think straight. Imagine you drop a stone in the pond and you get ripples. And as the ripples go out, they get smaller. They dissipate. They disappear. Right? The surface remains placid. Now imagine you heave a boulder in the pond. Right? It's more agitated. But still, ripples get smaller as they go out. Maybe a little shore disturbance, but no big deal. But now imagine something different. Imagine as the ripples go out, instead of getting smaller, they get bigger. And imagine a hailstorm of boulders heaving, falling into this pond. It's not a big pond either. There's not a whole lot of room to maneuver. And now you have tsunamis on shore, right? It's a roiling, disturbed area. It feels like this. And this is our emotional state during a terminal hospitalization. There's no way out. What we need is to be bailed, to be saved. But at least in my experience, we're not.
But hospitals don't provide care. Hospitals provide bodily repair services under the direction of independent physician scientists. And we know what care is. You and I know what care is. Everyone knows what care is.
Are we naive for expecting care? Anybody recognize this? Shout it out. Anyone? Nurse call bell. Well, it's a nurse call bell, but not in the hospital. It's a nurse call bell in the bedroom, right? This is a melody bell. And I had one of these when I was a kid, right? That's how I remember it. You know, so you're laid up in bed watching the tube, ginger ale and Jell-O on the bedstand, and you need mom, so you ring the bell, right? And mom shows up, right? And that's when we start learning about care, right? Real care. Not care as a word that's been dissociated with care, right? Which we cannot strip from the healthcare conversation because it's the mortar of the words, right? But we understand care because we received it as children. And as adults, we provide it to our children. And we want to provide it to our spouses and our siblings. And of course, we want to provide it to our hospitalized parents. Right? We understand intrinsically. I had to ask myself this question before I started all this. Are we naive for expecting care? Well, I call this mom and apple pie care. Because that's where we learned it. And the problem is that the system suggests that we're going to get that.
Bam, it's like a spear going in. Bam, it's like a spear going in. Bam, it's like a spear.
A complete lack of forecasting. And when I heard that, I about put the phone down and cried. And I was on the verge of tears because in that moment, I realized I'm not nuts. I'm not crazy. What we experienced has a name. If it has a name, that means it's normative. There's enough people experiencing these sorts of things that it's named, right? And I've taken this word, I attribute it to Diane because it is her word, and you probably want to meet her one day. I've expanded this definition, the provision of advance information or notice of possible things to come. This is miles beyond prognosis. And the consequences of not getting forecasting is this distinction between these two different kinds of shock. See, intrinsic shock is what happens because of the nature of things. It comes with the territory. You travel across, you fly in from Denver, 10-hour flight and rental cars and all that. See your mom in the ICU, she's wired up in ashen gray and maybe dying, and you're shocked, you're blasted. Well, that's intrinsic to the situation. Just comes with it, no blame. Extrinsic shock is these additional layers of shock, some of which I've shared with you, and how they've played out, and the effect that they have on people. They detune the patient family. The whole medical system says, you need to be involved. We need you. We need you to advocate for your loved one. We need your presence. We need your informed presence. And not only weren't we told why or how, but we were blasted and undermined because...
You are the first person who has said, I'm glad you've had the experiences with your parents.
Well,
I know.
yeah,
Don't feel bad. I know, but it's
Okay,
interesting.
okay.
But you see, you said something that's really remarkable, because that's the space that we need to get into.
You know, it's about the person we're losing, and it's about their end-of-life experience. But we are a family, and we do live on, right? So what do we take away? So imagine, if you will, this barrier, right? I call it the metaphorical glass. Our loved one dies. And you know, I've stood there. I want to go. I don't want to lose touch. I want to go where my dad has gone. I want to reach through. I want to crawl through this barrier. I can't do it. And I stand there against it, metaphorically speaking, in grief and sorrow. And when my tears finally stop, and the fog finally clears, and I look at the reflection of this metaphorical glass, what do I see? I see where we have been over the course of this demise, right? And that's my takeaway as a survivor. If I am a legislator or a clinician, I see other things as well. I see tens of thousands of boomers lined up down this metaphorical hallway, and I see the floor of that hallway littered with $1,000 bills. There's a lot to be seen in that glass. I was visiting with Dad a couple of months before he died at his townhome. I had gone down there to help him move into the assisted living apartment. And we're sitting at the kitchen table, right? Command central for chemical life support dispensation, right? It's the evening, he's counting his pills. And he says to me, Bart, I have one regret. And I said, only one? And he said, yeah. I said, what is it? And he said that I can't leave you and your sister as millionaires. And it was amazing. I just burst out laughing. I didn't know what to do with that. Sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake. A couple of weeks later, I emailed him. I said, hey man, not in your lifetime, but with what you are leaving me and Judy, if all goes well, then you will reach your goal in our lifetime. Maybe not with today's stock market news, but you know, we have some years left, right? You'll meet your goal in our lifetime. Well, I want to say this. I know that when I look forward to the end of my life, make no mistake, I'd love to have $1 million or several million bucks. But at the end of the day, I would rather touch 1 million lives than have $1 million.